Nita, does your family understand what you do?
Like, I don't think so. Because like my dad will text me and be like, "Oh, the Storm Chasers lost last night," and I'm like, "Yeah, I was there. Like, they lost because I posted that they lost."
We are surrounded by content. Content shapes who we follow, how we lead, what we buy, and even what we believe. Welcome to the Content Generation Podcast, a class intercom production where we focus on the stories that come to life in schools all over the world. We highlight the students, educators, and communities who share the content that shapes our future.
Welcome back to the Content Generation Podcast. We're excited to be back with you. We've got a great episode today. We're going to be talking to some young social media professionals. I'm really excited for you to hear about that. But also, Jill, let's catch up a little bit. You've been on the road. You've been in a lot of different places. You've been working with students, communicators, administrators. Tell me what you've been up to.
Yeah, it's been awesome. It's been great to be in some classrooms, training students, seeing this even eighth and ninth graders in Arkansas doing taking their first attempt at creating social media for someone other than themselves. So as content creators
So
for their
eighth
schools.
and ninth graders.
Eighth and ninth graders.
Okay,
Yep.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So just learning the basics, really trying to tell those basic stories, whether it be activities or sporting events, which we know are huge. And it's difficult for the adults to be everywhere at once and telling those stories. So really empowering these students to help. It's also been fun to be on the road with a lot of PR professionals and school communications professionals. And this is a growing industry, I think, especially coming out of COVID and just all the world is rife with controversy. So them being able to tell the facts and get the information out there, it's a growing industry. And so I love seeing that progression from young people in junior high, maybe even elementary, junior high, high school, into the college realm. And we've got some college students here in our own offices that are content creators for us as we're pushing them out into the real world with those real jobs. So it's really an exciting progression to see.
This the couple. I'm excited for you to get to listen to this podcast because we've got a couple young people who are early in their career. But one of the things that we talked about, I think, probably resonates with you when you were working with students in a school. They were creating a bunch of the content and they're publishing it. But their family didn't understand that yet. Did you experience that where you had students that all of a sudden they're connecting with parents, alumni, that group? Do you have any stories from that era?
Oh gosh, yeah, it's funny just because they don't get it. Like maybe a mom or grandma are even on Facebook, but they don't even understand like how it comes through their phone versus a computer versus their iPad, let alone that their students are on the other end of that, creating the graphics, actually sharing the information. And so when that light bulb kind of comes on, it's fun. And it's also why even these students that we just trained, their director actually had them tag themselves as the creators to really elevate them as content creators or photographers, and let those parents and grandparents know exactly what it is that they're doing and who's creating.
I think it's so amazing. The value of social media and the value of great content creation is just not understood oftentimes outside of those people who are in that industry. I think back, I've shared this story a number of times of my nephew creating an Instagram account, and I'm talking to him about it. And he says, well, my mom kind of made me delete this account. And I said, well, what happened? And he said, well, I gotten, pretty good following. It was about fishing. And so I just really liked fishing. And, he got it to about 15,000 followers on Instagram. And then his mom made it delete it. His mom's in front of him. And I was like, okay, so how much did your first car cost? Because that's probably what you just deleted and threw away. And I think it's really fun to see this movement of the content generation, to see how we're helping really bridge that gap between adults and students and those people who are becoming professional content creators right before our eyes.
Well, and I'll admit to my own naivete, I guess, when I was charged with doing social media as an assistant principal, I was doing so many other things, when we were talking about unifying the brand and all these things that were out of my realm of expertise. We were just really trying to tell our story and be as authentic as we could. I had no idea until I came into this role, just how much goes into that and thought goes into that. And so I think really raising up this generation to thoughtfully create that content and authentically share those stories is just incredibly powerful.
Well, speaking of those stories, let's get to the podcast.
Sounds great.
Well, welcome back to the Content Generation Podcast. I'm Ben. I am joined with two sports marketing content creators today that I'm really excited to introduce. We had a great conversation as we were getting started. Morgan Hobbs, a marketing coordinator, Nita Sabatka, social media manager. But both of you are with two different teams, but get to work together and collaborate a little bit. Tell me a little bit about who you work for. What teams are you working for?
Sure, I'll go first. I worked for the Omaha Storm Chasers, who is a AAA affiliate of the Kansas City Royals. So really, it's just one step shy of being in the MLB, is being with the Omaha Storm Chasers. And they've been the affiliate since the 60s. So I've been around a long time with the Royals.
Awesome. And Morgan?
Yeah, so I work for Union Omaha. We are Nebraska's only professional soccer team. We play in USL League One, which is the third tier of professional soccer. And we've been around kind of different than the Storm Chasers. We've been around for just only 3 years now. So it's kind of interesting kind of getting to build the fan base up from the ground up. We won the title in 2021 and have made the playoffs every year. So it's been pretty successful so far in our first couple of years.
Congrats to you both. Both tremendous teams and have had some great recent history and recent wins in both respects. But really excited to learn a little bit about how you got into the industry of content and the industry of sports. Did both of you have an interest in sports? How did this come about?
Yeah, I can go first. So I kind of always knew that I wanted to work in sports. I'd been an athlete my entire life. And so after I kind of got done playing,
What sport did you play?
I played softball. So I was a big softball fan, but I also I love football. My family are huge football fans. So I kind of just did everything when I was growing up and then focused on softball. But after I got done playing, I realized that, I really want to stay working in athletics, and I loved the atmosphere of it. So my major in college was sports media. I went to Northwest Missouri State and got to intern with the athletic department there, which was really cool. It's one of the top programs in D2. And I did a lot of the same stuff of what I'm doing now. So social media, promotions, that type of stuff. And then after I got out of college, I applied for the position, and here I am at Union Omaha.
Nina, how about you?
I was I want to work in sports, but I was always too afraid to be typecasted into sports. So I did other internships. I worked for a realtor. I worked in a nonprofit, and then I did an internship with USA Hockey's National Team Development Program. And I was okay, I definitely like what I'm doing here. I love being in the sports atmosphere. So from that internship, I was okay, I think I'm going to work in sports now and see where that takes me. But so yes and no, I wanted to work in sports, but I didn't want to be too typecasted into sports and have no other experience. But after having sports experience, I'm yeah, this is where I want to be in.
Nice. Now, what sort of subjects did you study in school? Did you both have relevant education that sort of led you to this spot?
I'll start. I went to Michigan State. I majored in advertising management with a minor in public relations and a minor in sports business management. So a lot of my classes were advertising focused because I didn't want to do social media in my head when I went to school. I was I'm going to do PR. I'm going to, write all these press releases for teams and whatever. And then, my classes were focusing on writing and what makes a good campaign. So social media, I think I took one class that kind of touched on it, but I didn't take any classes that were centered on social media and content development work. So
yeah. How about you, Morgan?
So my major was sports media in college. So it was kind of just a broad development of kind of a bunch of different skills. They had us doing video classes, a lot of writing classes, as Nina said, and writing I kind of have a more general title, I'd say. I do like a lot of different things over at Union Omaha. So writing is part of what I do as well. Like Nina, I also didn't really take any like focused social media courses, but it was something that I kind of did during my internship, and I had liked it enough. But yeah, I did a lot of different stuff. I did video, I did photography, I did writing. So I kind of had, a good baseline of a lot of different topics, which helped a lot.
Yeah. I'm really fascinated about both of you sort of coming into this world of content creation and really getting to understand how to build a fan base. But I want to understand a little bit more. And Morgan, I want to ask you what it's like. You're creating a team from the ground up, but you have to cover a live event. And at the same time, you have to cover things that are maybe not live, right? Like you've got to sell tickets, or otherwise nobody comes live. So
Right.
tell me a little bit about that balance. Like obviously there's this rush during a sporting event where we know like there's something viral happening here, but and then people will catch on. But like, how do you marry those two extremes of I've got to create content not when the event's happening and when the event's happening?
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. Like I said, we're only in our third year. I have been here for about a year, so we had a pretty engaged fan base even from the time that I started. But it's been kind of cool getting to grow that just in the year that I've been here. As you said, definitely selling tickets, getting people excited and wanting to come to the games, buying merch, all that stuff. You want to have a good balance between organic kind of content and more sales focused type things. But yeah, I think it really is just kind of about capitalizing on, the cool moments that do happen in game. We've had a lot of really successful, tournament runs and everything like that. So that's kind of helped, build excitement even just beyond the Omaha area into, national scale. But then, really kind of hammering home when we, have cool events that are going on at the stadium and that type of stuff, cool promotions. We have, a set calendar that we'll use and kind of map out, this is how many, sales things we want to do. And this is how, many more fun kind of activities that we want to do. So yeah, it's definitely hard to have a balance, but planning helps a lot. Yeah, I'd say.
Yeah, so you set kind of a content calendar of
Yeah,
sorts
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
then
Mhm.
vary that content.
Right.
Awesome. Awesome. Nina, so when you're covering, obviously, the program's been around a long time, um, but you're covering a baseball game where the last I checked, it's several hundred feet from home to the outfield. You've got a lot of territory to cover
Yeah.
during one event. How do you cover all of that in a live event?
Yeah, so what we do, we live tweet everything. So like if a run is scored, it's me clipping the highlight or whatever of that run being scored so people can see. But then also like capturing things for Instagram stories. So like running it around the ballpark and like, oh my gosh, this kid just got a ball from this player. Like I want to get this video of it happening. So trying to capture that as well as staying up to date with like what's going on in the game. It's it's a lot, and baseball games are long. Like 9 innings, it can be a very long time. So it's really trying to find like the cool things to capture that are going on in the game, and then like things that like also like runs being scored, you also have to capture. So it's trying to find like the balance, and also like not oversaturating ourselves to being like there's just so many things like no one cares because there's just so many posts. So it's trying to find the right balance of like what's going on in game, what the fans are doing. It's a lot of just finding that balance, I guess.
So how do you uncover like what the right story is in that moment? Like what is it that speaks to you and says, I'm going to cover this moment and not that moment? How do you debate those?
I try to find like what do I think would be the most engaging, like what would people like to see more. So I try to go into like that fan mode in my head. Like I'm also a sports fan, so like what would I want to see, and that like what would I interact with. So trying to find like kind of like my own thing. Like wow, I would click on that. Wow, I think that's interesting. So putting like my own biasy, I guess, into it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great. And I think you're probably making a lot of those calls uh, throughout the course of a single baseball game.
Oh, like my like you look at like my photos I take during a game, and like I just look at it and I just keep scrolling. I'm like, okay, this one didn't work, this one didn't work, but then going home that night and just deleting them all for the next day is,
Yeah.
is fun.
It's funny. So I chose a career that my family doesn't understand to a large degree. How do both of you feel about that? Do you like when you're home for Thanksgiving? Does your family understand what you do?
To an extent, I would say. I think everybody thinks it's a really cool job, right? Because you get to be like around the athletes, working in pro sports. I mean, it's awesome, and I think like I've gotten to travel to MLS stadiums, these like huge, ginormous stadiums where I have no idea where I'm going, and be like on the front lines, and it's been really exciting. Yeah, it's funny because like right now we're in our off season, we're getting gearing up for the next season, but we're in our off season, and everybody is always like, "What do you like do anything during the off season?" Like they just kind of feel like it's like a dead period, and it's the complete opposite. Like you do so much planning in the off season. A lot of times it's like even more busy than the actual season. So, yeah, that's kind of funny, but yeah, once we get into the season, I think everybody kind of knows that I'm going to be stuck to my phone and it's going to be, kind of go time. So,
Nita, does your family understand what you do?
Like, I don't think so. Because like my dad will text me and be like, "Oh, the Storm Chasers lost last night," and I'm like, "Yeah, I was there. Like, they lost because I posted that they lost." So like, yeah, Dad, I know.
yeah,
And like it's just funny because he knows that like I work in social media, but I don't think he puts together that like the post that he saw that we lost was because I posted it, and like I just don't think like he's like put that together in his head. But like, and then I'll also like people text me like, "Oh, can you hang out this Saturday?" And I'm like, "No, I work." And they're like, "Oh, you work on the weekends?" And I'm like, "Yeah, like there's games on the weekends. Like I can't hang out. Like yeah, I work." So like
Yeah.
I don't know if people have kind of put together that like the weird hours that we work and like what we do.
for sure.
So my family tries, but I don't think they fully kind of captured.
Yeah. Well, it's so fun to hear. I think the sort of industry of content creation is one that's misunderstood and oftentimes overlooked, right? And we sort of don't really understand like what that looks like sometimes if you've never been behind the scenes. But I want you to both talk about what the craft of social media really looks like, and what are the things when you feel like I just nailed that piece? Morgan, do you have any examples where you'd say I know that I'm good at this because I nailed that?
That's a tough question.
Yeah.
Um, I think obviously like just looking at, engagements can be a really good cue for that kind of stuff. Like I said, our fan base on soccer is it's super engaged, and so they get excited for pretty much anything that we do, honestly, any announcement that we make or anything like that. So I think kind of just like building out, like we're gonna tease this announcement, and then having this big like grand reveal where people are really excited and are sharing it on their own platforms and everything. That kind of like lets me know like this was a good post.
Awesome. Nina, how about you?
I guess like I've heard like people like go up to our GM once is like, "I love like what your social media is doing," or like people even comment like, "Wow, I love the turn the social media has made," and like so it's like those comments where I'm like, "Ah, okay, like you're liking what I'm putting out here," and like the quick engagement on it. Like I put something out and it already has like 20 retweets. I'm like, "All right, I'm onto something here. I did something that people are connecting to." So it's like those moments, or like we create a super cool graphic and like people are like, "Oh, this is dope." Then I'm like, "All right, like." It's like those like the comments that people make online are not always awful, which is great. And so like the nice ones are the ones I'm like, all right, I made it. Like, you guys like this.
Well, and like you said, I loved where you said, like your dad didn't quite put the connection together that the reason he knows whether they win or lose is because of your role. Like that's such a critical role to your team's success, that you're really demonstrating that right there. That's awesome to see.
Yeah.
Cool. So when you think about, if you were to rewind, how long have both of you been in the career of generating social media?
I'll go first. I've been with the Storm Chasers now over a year. And then with my internship with USA Hockey, I was there for like a year. So I've kind of been like 2-ish years I've been doing this.
Okay. And Morgan, how about you?
Yeah, so I think my 1 year is actually next week that I've been here. So I've been in this position for about a year, and then, like I said, I did stuff in college. My internship was a year long, so I did a lot of social media through that as well. So probably about 2 years, I'd say.
Yeah, so both of you are within a couple years. If you were to roll things back to 4 years to 6 years, so we're thinking beginning of college or when you were in high school, what sorts of things would you have told yourself then about creating social media content?
I would say don't read the mean comments because people out there are mean and behind the screen they'll still tell you anything. So I tell myself like you got to grow thick skin and know that like they don't know who you are. They don't know you're the person that's posting this. They are just upset and want someone to know. So I would tell myself that very early on. Grow thick skin.
Hmm.
Um, I would also say like the job and when you tell other people is glamorous, like they're like, wow, like that's a cool job. Like people know what you do every day, they see what you do every day. But then I would tell myself like it's a grind on the back end. Like it is a grind.
For sure.
Like I work like we work 6 days a week. So like we have games 6 days out of the seven. And then sometimes you work back to back. So you have 12 games in 13 days and you're there all day. And like you work your 9 to 5 and then you also have a game. So like it is a grind, but then it's really just like you have to get through it. Like there are so many positive moments in it that like you're gonna be so rewarded at the end. But you just gotta grind through and like know your worth and just keep on going.
I think for me, I would say just like not to second guess myself. I think it's really easy, when you're kind of like the voice of your team, to kind of think about, what could go wrong in the situation. I'm, grateful that I have a good team with me, that'll kind of help me, think about things and view things from a different perspective. But definitely, I would say just, go with your gut and, like Nina said, have thick skin. If people don't like what you put out, it's not the end of the world. You always have a chance to redeem yourself from that. So just be confident about what you're doing, and it's always yielded good results. So
Yeah. What would you say is the fulfilling component of that? When you say I feel like I'm in the right place doing the right things. Do you have a sense of satisfaction in that?
oh yeah, for sure. I think like just getting again, I keep going back to the fan engagement because that's the part for me that's really cool. Is just realizing like this is a huge part of some people's lives, and I'm obviously a sports fan, so like I know how it feels, but to a lot of people like this is what they look forward to. I have fans who are like they can't focus on their work because they're like too busy waiting for our announcements on social media and stuff, and so it's a super rewarding job to like see that kind of pay off and the benefit of having your fans be excited and building this cool community around it. So
Do you both remember the Nike ad that came out during pandemic where they sort of described all of sports ending and how we had to
yes,
overcome this?
yeah,
Right? It was this epic ad,
right,
and I watched it I don't know how many times, and in that moment I was like, no, that's me. Like I wanted it to come back so
yeah.
badly. That it was it's such an important part of how we relate to other people too.
Mhm.
Yeah, I remember like golf was one of the first sports to come back, and I just dove right in. I'm like, all right, I'm a golf fan now. Like, this sport that's on, like, yeah, I can get behind golf.
Yeah.
Sure. Nina, how about you? When did you feel like it was fulfilling to you? Have you felt some moments there?
Yeah, like I've had like a play, like we would post like something cool a player did. Like we had a player who had like so many like scoreless innings, and we like made a graphic about it and put it out there. And then later on, we talked to him. He's like, I had no idea. He was like, I had no idea I was on that scoreless streak. And like he was like a relief pitcher, so like someone you easily forget about. And
Hmm.
he was found it very cool that we posted about him and what he did, and it was a cool graphic. So it was like that moment where I'm like, okay, like even the players appreciate like what we're doing here. So like
Mhm.
that to me was like a huge moment of like, okay, like we got it.
That's awesome. So have tell me a little bit about the relationships that you make in and around social media because you're covering a sport, but you're also covering people like that. Tell me a little bit about how you've gotten to know the players, the coaches, the fans. What does that look like?
I would say ours are very different. Like, whereas Union
Very
like
different scenario.
owns their players, whereas we don't. The Royals own our players, so like we don't get to do as many things as like Union might get to do because we simply don't own them. So like we really have a different relationship with the players. Like we have a short amount of time weekly that we can even see them, so like it's about finding like when you're in that time, what can we create? What can we do? Having it all scheduled out because that's the only time that you will get is that allotted time. So that is interesting and different, and maybe people don't know that.
Yeah, I'd say on our side, like, saying the players are probably so sick of seeing me because I'm just like constantly sticking a camera in their face at everything they do. I'm at, a bunch of events and just trying to capture as much content as I can. So it's been really fun because, I love getting to know the players and, every year we have kind of a different team. So it's kind of cool, like getting to see their personalities and, using that also as content in itself. But yeah, it's been really fun. I think the relationships are some of the coolest parts of the job. So.
Yeah. Do you capture that content? Obviously, a soccer field's quite large.
Yes.
Do you capture it with your iPhone? Do you use a DSLR? Do you kind of sync the two? How do you make that happen?
So yeah, so I'm usually up in the press box actually, and then we have a couple photographers that are on field and they kind of capture stuff. This year is our first year where we'll have a videographer as well. So we really want to try and kind of capture that more in-game content that we can share out. But we do things pre-game. We have this thing called like match day runway where the guys all show up and they have like their nice little like fits on and everything walking to the locker room. And so like we'll put pictures of that stuff out, and our photographer will get that to me. But yeah, we just kind of like it's a collaborative effort, I'd say.
Cool. So are you assigning them, a photographer to get a specific shot? Are you sort of like waiting for that feed of photos to kind of come back to you?
Yeah. It's kind of just depends on what happens in the game, but any like exciting moments, they also get a lot of fan stuff. I think that's more kind of what Nina does as well. Is just kind of getting an overall view of the atmosphere and making sure that even if people aren't there at the stadium, that they can kind of feel a part of the experience as well through the social media. So.
Cool, cool. And Nina, how about you? As far as covering the content, are you covering that all yourself? Your own photos? Do you have other people that help you with that?
So we do. We have a photographer, and they take just player photos. So there have been times where, like, I'm running around the concourse, go up to the press box, grab her SD card, plug it into my computer, like, grab like the one photo through the hundreds that I need to like put it in, put it out, and then go back down and running like crazy. So a lot of content, like if you ever see on our Instagram stories or a lot of our Twitter, is like my iPhone that I've captured through wherever I am at that moment. But then like the really good photos are not me, and they're our photographer who I like quickly like maneuver and do everything I need to at like during the game to get out.
Nice. Well, it's probably aptly named that you work for the Storm Chasers. It feels like that's pretty much exactly what you're doing every game and a lot of the times in between. So when both of you think about the young content creators that we work with, that we help coach, and we're bringing them alongside of the professional content creators who are representing schools and school districts, what advice would you have for other content creators? Nina, go ahead and take first.
Yeah. Obviously, don't be afraid to fail. Not everything is going to be a success.
Mhm.
And like I know at the moment, like you think it's great and then it doesn't do well and it's super disheartening. And you're like, oh, maybe I'm not good at this job. But then you have something that like you maybe like wasn't as good as that thing before, but then it got a lot of popularity. And you're like, okay, so you have to like be okay with failing and then knowing that like you may be a perfectionist at things and it might not work out, but then something else will work out. So you kind of have to find that of like I can fail, it's okay. Not everything's going to be great, but then also like knowing things to capture I think are good. Like you may think it's stupid and like maybe not your thing, but then someone else would be like that is the coolest thing I've ever seen. So like trying to know your audience well enough to know like this is something that they might like even though I don't like, and then making sure you capture that for them.
Yeah, I was actually going to say the exact same thing about kind of just knowing your audience. I think when you're first starting out, it probably is a little bit more trial and error. But as you get more used to it, you learn, what works, what your audience connects with more. And so, getting more in touch with what draws that type of response. Like I said, not second guessing yourself. But it's also just, I mean, getting as much experience as you possibly can early on is super super helpful down the line, because like I said, trial and error, and once you go through that and kind of know what you're doing, it becomes a lot less daunting and a lot easier. So
Yeah, I think about failure sometimes doesn't have to be traumatic, right? In social media, hopefully, I think some of the time we talk about social media failures being these huge things that blew up and they sort of like it went viral. But I'm guessing based on what you're saying is that most of those failures may not have gone viral.
No,
no,
no, they don't. And if
it's
they
probably the
do,
opposite. Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
They go viral, amazing.
Yeah.
Right.
it's more of like it flopped, right? Is that
Yes.
kind of what
Yeah.
you're saying? It's
Yeah.
like
Right.
you sort of made a piece of content and it just didn't go very far.
Hmm.
Hmm. Yeah. So when we think about where you're headed next for both of you, what sorts of things would you say you want to accomplish next, or you've got your mindset? This is what I want to do, either for the season, for honing your craft. What types of things would you say you have on tap next?
For us, my big thing is I want fans to get to know players more. So from the limited time we have with them, like I want to capture as much content as I can and make it be authentic as it can. So I think now it's like where the trend is going is like most authentic as possible. They don't want a lot of production. Like I think that's like what TikTok is doing. Like people just being their authentic selves, and that's what people are drawn to and want to see. Like I truly think people want to see the failures. They want to see the goofs because then they can relate to that. And so like that's what I want. Like I want to show our players in an authentic way and to show like the people that they are. And I think that's like my big thing I want to do this season is to show that more authentic side of them and the organization even.
Yeah, I think for me, it's again same kind of mission, is just building the fan base. I feel like we've made good strides in the Omaha community, but I want it to be be to the point where we're kind of like the storm chasers. And I usually, when I tell people my job, I have to say I work for Union Omaha, it's the pro soccer team, but I want to get to the point where we have a big enough fan base and a big enough presence to where I can just say I work for Union Omaha. People know exactly who that is. But kind of, building up that, continuing to, have a really engaged fan base. Player content, like Nina said, is huge. It's huge. I feel like that's the content that always does like the best for us, at least. And so, kind of getting to capture more of that and just pumping out as much content as possible so we can, the fans can feel like they know the players, and then that obviously helps them and wants them, or makes them want to, come out to the games.
Well, I love the way that both of you are creating content, inspiring others to do that. You're collaborating with your team, both the team that's official and your team of content creators. It's been great to get to know you in this podcast. I wish you all the best in your successes for the next steps of your content creation journey. And so, thank you for being part of the content generation with us.
Yeah,
Thank you
thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you for having us.